Perfect, perfect. Boom, boom, boom. We're live, and welcome to another edition of Life is People. Tonight we're going to have a. I've been fascinated to talk to this gentleman for a long time. I was introduced to him by and I want to. I think I want to start the podcast with putting a big shout out to Joanna, really, because Joanna's done a lot of work behind the scenes to get us connecting. I think it's always always good to sort of highlight people who do a lot of the hard work behind the scenes. So before I go any further, I just want to thank Joanna for making this conversation possible and connecting us. So tonight we're going to be speaking with John, who's founder of Blackcert. So before we go any kind of further, I mean, I think there's no better person to ask than yourself, John. I mean, tell us more about Blackcert, what it is, what you offer, and why you think it's crucial, and where we are here we are in 2015.
Well, Tim, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's definitely a pleasure to share my story and what we're all about here on your show. Blackcert is a company that we started with the ambition in mind to have encryption available for everyone. We feel that this is important. It is part of the story, this ongoing story and struggle, for people to gain back their privacy and their digital rights. So essentially, our initial product, what we're in business right now, we are selling digital certificates, and these are those little encrypted little pieces that you see, when you're in a web transaction that secure your information. So basically, when information is in transit from your computer, your smartphone, your tablet, to some web server somewhere, it's the encryption that secures that information so that somebody who's snooping cannot easily break in and see what's going on and get information like your name, your password, your credit card numbers, things like that. That's one of the primary uses for it, but there are countless other reasons to have this level of privacy built into web transactions. So our goal is to make that easy for people that have web pages. Our goal is to get this in front of as many people as possible, because it's a story that still needs to be told, even though the technology has been around for some years. It's something that there's a movement right now called Let's Encrypt, and this is a movement out there that's trying to get free certificates out there. And it's a very noble effort, but it's not for everyone. It's not exactly easy to install, and it's not exactly there's a dimension missing in it. In that, one of the things that Blackcert does is we're trying to raise awareness of higher forms of validation. So what happens is, when you have these higher forms of validation, the identity of the person on the other end of the transaction, you have some assurance that that person is, or that business is that business, and not some hacker or some fly-by-night website. They've actually proven who they are by providing documents, by providing a callback. Somebody, with our validation team will actually speak to that person on the other end of the line, and that's a big part of that story. When you're talking about, it's kind of like two sides, right? On the one side, you want privacy, but you also want to know that the person that you're exchanging information with is actually that person. So we provide that part of it as well.
Well, yeah. I think the essence of it, we had a quick chat earlier on, and I think that and it's been fascinating me for a long time, that the whole essence and the whole element of what privacy is a concept that's dying, I think, day by day, moment by moment, and we've got now people around us who don't even understand what privacy means, and they're willing to give up so much because they think it doesn't really matter, but it's really essential. To me, I think privacy is essential, because I think, just as a creative person, I think privacy is needed because thoughts and exchanges of information at times are needed between people outside of everybody's glare and gaze. Now, obviously, this is something that's been that's what fascinates me about Blackcert in particular. Is it something you're focusing on now? you must come across a world who, and I think it's something you obviously quite allude to, who don't even understand about how much of their information is being watched and seen. I mean, people when they, I just, from a general point of view, when most people hear encryption, they just think, oh well, that's something that we do with passwords. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Over here at the moment, we've had quite a few sort of major hacks from companies. And everyone's really surprised by it, and I'm like, well, why does that come as a surprise to anybody when people like Snowden have been putting stuff out for ages, telling us what's been going on, and you can just check what's been being passed through various governments around the world. But my point to you is, you're obviously focusing on privacy. So why is it particularly about privacy you think is that's being eroded, and why you think it's essential?
Well, privacy is, you're exactly right, dude. You made a statement there that said, we give away so much information in exchange for convenience without really any, notion of, what exactly it is that we're giving up. Um, Everywhere we go, we leave little breadcrumbs about our lives, whether we know it or not. Where I logged in from, what time I logged in, and over time, right? At 2 o'clock I check in from this location. I check my bank account. At 3 o'clock I do this. I go on this dating site. I check my email at 4:15. All these things start to draw a picture, and that's part of the Snowden revelations was, that information in aggregate really starts to tell the story of what you are. It's amazing, and there's been so many articles written about this. And this is what companies do, marketing companies, and tracking information and using it to figure out who these audiences are. And it's incredible the amount of specificity that they're able to find out who you are, what you're into, where you are, what your likely income is, what your home address is, your IP, your geolocation, all of this stuff. And so privacy is a big thing that I think people need to be aware of, because everything is becoming more and more digital. Our lives are becoming more digital. We have all of these digital objects, these smart watches. I mean, smartphones was like the first wave, but now everything is coming with some type of internet connectivity. And yeah, it seems small in one respect, but it's like, on, off, empty, full, three-quarters full, that kind of stuff. It seems kind of funny, but it really isn't, because, in relation to other information about you, that is, a huge source of information that can reveal a lot about an individual, about your lifestyle and what's happening. And, I think it's worth hanging on to your digital sovereignty. So this is a part of that story and part of the things that we're trying to tell. We feel that encryption is something that everybody has a right to, and it's an interesting thing because there's a number of efforts in the government. I know over there, Cameron was one of them that was speaking out about it. We have our actors here as well that have spoken out very publicly about trying to restrict encryption and encryption methods, because ostensibly it hampers their ability to conduct law enforcement and things like that, and to investigate certain things. But it's trading perception of security, perception of safety for your digital privacy, and that's a big issue, and something that we should, until things really progress a little bit and we could figure out ways to protect those things, because we should hold off on really going that path, because again, that's one thing about the Internet of Things, about these highly interconnected devices that are ubiquitous and everywhere, that there really hasn't been a ton of design in terms of security built into these things. So there's a number of ways to address this, and we're looking at some ways at Blackcert of integrating these kinds of dynamic keys and dynamic encryption and things like that, so that it can be managed, it can be monitored, and you can actually associate a device and at least be able to identify, yes, that was mine, right? That was my thermostat, that was my doorbell, right? That sent that out. That's kind of where things are going, and the kind of solutions that we need to look for.
I was thinking the other day that it really can't be overstated how important it is that we have unbreakable encryption in the hands of everybody. And the main reason why is it seems obvious on one level, and it's a matter of trust. And if you're living in a world where you know you can't trust the politicians, you can't trust different agencies to do the right thing under all circumstances, then you're going to be, or somebody you know is eventually going to be a target. And things that would otherwise be, what's the right word, harmless, will be used against them just because it doesn't fall in line with somebody else's political stance at the time. And when it comes to our ability to think freely and say the things we want to say in the way we want to say them, and say it among our peers, what I say to you, if I want to say it in private, I have every right for that to be private. And everyone else should have that right to speak to anybody else in the world privately. And to give the government or agencies anywhere in the world a back door that allows them to dig into anybody's trash, anybody's communications, means that they basically own you, because they can use things against you that you had no idea they even knew. They can, your information, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs. Let's just say I believe in fairies, and then I'm running for political office, and then somebody decides, hey, let's expose this guy believes in fairies. It's a way to ruin people. It's a political tool that trumps every other tool that's ever been created. The ability to know what's in somebody's mind down to the most intimate details. And if we don't protect ourselves from that, we're going to end up in a technocratic, elite-ruled society that everyone else is a pawn, and there's no way around it.
I agree with
yeah,
that.
Rich, but John, before you go any further, Rich, can I just say, man, when next time you go on, man, I just because I live here in the UK, can you anything other than Theresa May staring back at me, please, man? I live in.
I'm sorry, I found this, and unfortunately, I didn't even have it where you could read the title, but it was basically, let me take that off. I just wanted to point out that, hey, they're trying. Excuse me. They're trying to figure out how to get governments to have that back door. Right now, just 3 days ago, they're still pushing for it, and then they'll continue to push for it, unfortunately, until they get it. And it's only the technologies like Blackcert and MadeSafe and these other technologies like IJA's putting out that are going to be the way around for people to maintain their integrity. Sorry about that picture staring at you.
Right, I'm sorry to interrupt you, John. Carry on.
Oh, well, no, I was going to add something off of that. There's another aspect to this as well. It has to do with the element of trust, and I know that trust was mentioned here. I think that one thing that people need to realize is that trust and security are inseparable. They truly are, because at some point in any situation that one would consider secure, whether it's I consider my home secure, I consider my car secure, I consider my computer secure, there comes a moment at which somebody makes a mental decision that I'm safe with this, I'm good with this, right? And whether they put that faith in a bit of hardware, that I've got a firewall, or I've got antivirus software, I'm safe. This car was tested, at some facility. They put crash dummies in there. It weighs 5,000 pounds. It's safe. All of those moments, I have a home security system, whatever it is. All of those moments require a leap of faith that says this is safe. And when a government is backdooring things like that, and you're absolutely right, Rich. When the government is backdooring things like that, and there's this whole aspect of, not that they are listening to everything that I'm saying, or they are looking at every email that I have. It's the fact that they can, right? And that should bother people. We should have technology that secures our information, if we should choose. It should be commercially available, easily available. And the backdoor thing is, it's really tough to. We'll see where this goes, but it's really tough. This is something that is going to be a fight, and we've seen already that their history has been that they were able to do things, and they did, and that just doesn't portend well to put trust in these organizations that could be listening to your information, that could be looking at your emails or your files you think are safe, and they're regularly reading up on what it is that you're doing, without any report to you or any acknowledgement to you. Hey, we did this, we want it to look. Nothing. It's just happening, and that's a big deal.
And I think, like you said, they're not looking at us straight out. That there's not that many people sifting through necessarily. It's the algorithms and these AI computers somewhere in Utah that are sifting through the data and saying, okay, this person has said that, basically profiling. We're being profiled by AI, and if you do enough things that set off the flags, you're going to be pulled aside every time you try to fly somewhere. You're going to, you're just under the microscope now because a computer decided that you set off a number of a profile that was considered a dangerous profile. Mm-hmm. And maybe, it could be like that researcher. Somebody was researching for a novel and in his novel it was had to do with murder, and he was typing in. Most people have heard this story. It was this guy typed in a lot of Google searches, and he didn't do anything private, And so when it came time, he actually had the people show up at his door because they thought, okay, this guy fits a serial killer profile because of all the research that he's doing, and it turned out he was just doing research for a novel. But maybe the AI will get a little bit, or I should say the algorithms will get better as time goes on, but we don't want to even have to be there. We don't want to have to be under that microscope at all. We shouldn't have to be. And if I want to research whatever I want to research, I should be able to do that without second guessing myself, thinking, wow, if I actually research that, I might get in trouble. I might not be able to make my flight because they're probably going to pull me over at the TSA and check me out and go through my bag. So I applaud what you're doing with Blackcert. Oh, I wanted to ask you, what the Heartbleed, the SSL, how did that affect your business?
We weren't quite launched. It actually, going back to Heartbleed, that was one of the things that really started to spark my interest into starting Blackcert. So it was really kind of the genesis of this business. A major vulnerability, big issue. It's open source type of thing that was everywhere. It was just pervasive and a major flaw. I think it really shocked some people, and people now, and this was all in the wake of all the Snowden stuff and all of this. We hear about hacks every day. Unfortunately, at least it seems every day. There was a big one that came out in the news just today, but. A lot of those things are executed through, just a variety of methods, and if we can help, get privacy out there, it's a tool. SSL is a tool that encrypts information as it's being transmitted. So it's really a technology that faces the consumer quite a bit, right? The visitor to a website. But we're looking at some new technologies that will bring PKI, which is the technology behind SSL. TLS is actually the technology that it is. SSL is kind of a legacy term, but not to get too technical there. So we're looking at technologies of implementing PKI, for example, and isolating that to a company. So rather than having a public PKI, we would have a secure encrypted, keyed infrastructure, and it would be the kind of infrastructure that would have rapid changing of keys. So basically, it would be very easy management. for one, and if someone should intercept any type of keys or certificates or anything like that, they're replaced so quickly that there's no way, even if you were to take that information, take it offline, it's already changed, right? So some pretty cool stuff out there. We're looking at new ways of doing that, bringing this to the consumer and the enterprise, and just trying to raise awareness of better ways to encrypt information, to secure information, and for consumers and companies as well.
In your research on MadeSafe, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go on, Richard. Go on.
In your research on MadeSafe, is there anything particular that's caught your interest with that? That's exciting, particularly exciting to you?
Well,
in the technology?
I definitely like the idea. Yeah, I like the idea of decentralized computing. I think that's kind of the future. I mean, we've seen a number of things like that have a unique platform. There's a couple that are based on Bitcoin and things like that. We love these kinds of things because they have big potential for transforming the way we do things, right? So these are great things that are out there in the community, and I think that that's how some of the better technologies out there have emerged, right? Bitcoin being one example, being free, easy to implement. So I think that anytime you have a product that comes out and people start to adopt it, and you make it easy, I think that it's got great potential for doing things, for securing things about a person's digital life when it comes to, social networking, setting up storage online, storing things online, and making sure that it's safe for the transaction, that's safe. Your voice over IP, things that we're doing right now. If there's a way to do that, and to do it in a way that's efficient and it's going to work, I mean, I support that. So it's pretty exciting stuff from that point of view.
So are you working on some level with Demon Saw at all, or have you looked into Demon Saw?
I'm familiar with Demon Saw. It's one of the hot products out there, and I know that Ija has been on and talked about the product, and I know that there's a lot of interest in what he has going on, and it was like the Black Hat product of the year a year or two ago. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff.
I was gonna ask you, John. I mean, I'm always fascinated by anybody that particularly like yourself, who's building a product like you are. I mean, where did your journey to to get you to this point? Because it's, I mean, I say this because I know you got sort of some sort of connection with people. I don't want to start dropping names and stuff, but it's what I'm trying to say is the incentive isn't out there at the moment in this world right now. If you want to make money and be comfortable, to go out and do a route that you're taking, So I'm fascinated. So where does your journey in all this begin, and what drives you to sort of wake up every morning and carry on building Blackcert and not just go and work in the city and easy money and then all the using your skills to earn money on Wall Street or something?
I've always been a tinkerer. I'm not an inventor by any means, but I love to deconstruct things and put them back together and repair and things like that. I don't always do a great job. So I started out in my career, my life, I worked on cars, right? That's how I came up, and I could tell a whole story about how that is a multi-generational thing, which is pretty interesting. Some people find it, but probably not good for this conversation. But anyways, for many years, I grew up in Silicon Valley. I'm originally from New York City, but in my teenage years, I moved to Silicon Valley, and I was a technology consultant for many years. I traveled the country, times were good. It was up and down, right? Mostly up, and you know how Silicon Valley is. But you know, a number of companies. You know, I saw. I mean, I worked in the Google building before it was the Google building. It used to be SGI, and you know, talk about a company at the peak of its decadence. You know, there was just a lot of crazy stuff. I worked at Cisco, and I mean, anyway, so you know, I was a hired hand, a hired gun, if you will. And it was interesting, right? Because as a consultant, you're a hired hand on, but you're also a trusted advisor, right? So you talk to people that are at the highest levels of the company, or at least in a decision-making place in the company, and you know, you talk to them about their solutions and how to get there, and you know, there's a lot of assurance and a lot of communication and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed that. So one of the things, so in that progression, I worked at eBay and things like that. I got exposed to PKI initially there, and so one of the things. So as this progressed, one of the places where I went to work was the Department of Defense, and there I was under DISA, which is the Department Information Security Agency. I don't remember what it stands for. But anyways, the kind of projects that I can't really talk about what I did. But you know, it was nothing like surveillance or anything like that. But there was a lot of security structure to that, and that's what really started to turn me on to security. Because as a consultant, a system administrator, an engineer, architect, security is a part of anybody's like background and you know, the best practices and things like that. You should always integrate those things. So you know, it was real special to me from that point on, because my next major assignment, I went and I designed a cybersecurity a research center for a university down in Texas, and really started to get into like this whole you know, encryption thing, and you know, the security of information, both you know, in place and in motion. You know, it's kind of the best practices there, and you know, what these different levels meant and everything else. From there, I went on to work at a hospital, a healthcare organization, a major healthcare organization. So there, you kind of see the not so fun side of a security, but the things that have to be done and the things that we expect to be done in terms of compliance, right? You have HIPAA, right, which has some digital aspects to it. You've got you have your PCI compliance, right, because we process credit cards. So there's all kinds of work that has to be done around that, and securing of systems. How do we apply this to 2,000 computers that some of them are out on this data center, some are out on our floor, and this and that. So all of those systems and architecting those things was pretty fun stuff, no doubt about it. So around that time, I started to share my experiences, started to really, you know, get into the blogging and writing about these things, and you know, I became a pseudo reporter for a while and a cybersecurity editor, and really just started to get, you know, into like the greater community, and sharing my story with people, you know, online through my writing. I got to know so many like leaders in this industry, and I've met some tremendous friends for life, really. That some of them I've never met in person, right? So it's pretty cool stuff. And you know, I think that, you know, Blackcert was born out of this notion that, you know, I wanted to do something. I wanted to go out there and make a difference. And Heartbleed was certainly one of those things that really kind of, you know, woke things up for me, and it started to inspire me. And the same goes for, you know, the revelations about surveillance, the revelations about the ease at which and the rate at which, I mean, it seems, again, like for a while there, it seemed like monthly we were hearing about breaches, and now there's major breaches daily. And unfortunately, the response that we get from a lot of these companies is, well, we got breached, we're going to send you this letter, apologize if you get that much, and you're going to get some credit protection, right? So you can monitor your credit and see how screwed you are, and then maybe you can jump in and fight and clean it up. The credit rating system is another story, which is crazy because those companies get away with murder. But then they leverage their judgment on it on all else. So it's interesting. But anyways, so yeah, that was kind of the genesis of I want to do something with in that security space and get this out to the people. And I think the most fundamental way of doing that is getting encryption out there, because we're entering a period of time, or we're already in the period of time where our lives we're becoming statistics, numbers, right? A profile. You're the sum of your digital life, and it's all over the place, and we're constantly giving it out, whether we like to or not. And I know I've read some books about how to go dark and how to be off the grid, and it's just impossible. If you're alive, you're somewhere reading on somebody's system somewhere. So again, it's a struggle of keeping that privacy, that identity somehow. And I like to kind of draw this analogy in a way that it's it's the thing about digital certificates. In essence, when I talk to people that just have no idea what this is, I tell them, when you are transacting information, for example, with your bank, and you want to check your balance or make a payment and things like that, you don't want somebody else listening, or you don't want to walk into to kind of put that in a physical world type of situation. You wouldn't go up to some van that said bank on the side and then go give your money to the guy, right? You'd want to know at least that van came from the bank, right? So how is that done? And it's analogous to like your driver's license, right? Here in the States, in most states, driver's licenses are basically given out when you validate who you are. You bring in some documents that you live somewhere, that you have a social security number, or whatever it is. So you've proven to that person, right? And then this agency gives you that piece of identification. It has some security features on it. I think mine has a hologram and a stripe on it, that kind of thing. If everybody could go home and print their own license, then they would be worthless, right? So we essentially act as that agency, right? The Department of Motor Vehicles. People send their credentials, companies that wish to validate that they are this person, and we certify those documents, and you receive a certificate. And there are higher and higher forms of validation, the highest of which is extended validation, which is pretty cool stuff, because we actually go through business documentation. There's a phone call that certifies who you are. It has to be a public phone number to kind of prove that you're an actual business in an actual place and things like that. So it's a little harder to get one of these things, or try to trick things with some kind of emails and things like that, which can unfortunately happen when you're talking about simply domain validating certificates. So the amazing thing, the tricky thing, and people don't realize, is on behalf of the consumer, the user, there's really nothing they have to implement. When they go to a web page, their browser already pre-negotiates all of this stuff, right? So you'll see like a little lockbox in your browser that says this site is secure, right? For the higher forms of validation, you get a green toolbar, right? So your little navigation bar will go at least maybe a quarter green or something like that, depending on what browser you're using. So that is pre-negotiated. It goes to the body of central authorities to validate digitally what the signature of that certificate is, and then positive experience. So I'm not sure how I got on. I think I was talking about why I got into this business, but I think that's really the fundamental component of web transactions. We're starting to see more and more of this stuff playing out on mobile devices, playing out on game consoles, and at some point the Internet of Things. If we can implement security in terms of data that's in transit, I think we'll be a lot further along in protecting people's privacy. And if we can do that with certificates, that's tremendous.
I think it's a very almost kind of, it's a very synergy moment that this is. I mean, it's only just passed into the 12th here. The 11th over here is a very poignant day for people over here, because it's all the things that you and Rich and we've been discussing so far. It's only 2 generations back that a lot of people had to stand up to this, and they stood up. No, I'm not going to, whether you think it was right or wrong, or the whole, how it all happened. That's another discussion. But at some point in time, people like 2 generations away from us had to stand up and say, right, we're standing up for freedom. And it got to dark times, and we know where that went. And significantly in my lifetime, we've I've lived in times where governments have just wiped out loads of thousands, millions of human beings. And I think one of the dangers that we live in now, and I think it's fascinating that you were tapping onto it just then, is I think there's this idea that most people have that we live in a world where everything is banal. The governments are banal, and all these things are banal. It's all fair enough, and they don't realise that this freedom we even have this discussion right now. It's been hard fought, and equally the people who don't want the freedom and they want more control, they don't stop. As you all know, man, these people never. It's an ongoing thing. They always want more and more and more. And I think it's hilarious, because I think if people just woke up and said to these people just simply, like, if you want more and more, to know about what we're doing and everything about our lives and stuff like that, then why don't you go and live in a glass box, and we'll watch you, and we'll watch everything you do, and we don't even get receipt for our tax bills. No, they just come along, take our money, and go and spend it. We don't even get a receipt to what they spend it on. So there's no equal, they're not. That's what makes you laugh about everything. They point with one thing and they say to us, we must know what you do. They don't want any transparency on the other side. So I think it's hilarious, and I think it's just really poignant to, like I said, to the 11th and the day that a lot of people stood up for this. Now, you talked about where you're doing and stuff like this, and you mentioned where you're going. Where do you think this is going generally? I mean, we've talked about the good, the negative side, and the why necessity of privacy. Where do you think this is going? Because there's obviously a battle between mindsets at the moment, and there's people like we just explained. There's people who want to have more and more control, and they feel they can know about every part of what you're doing to track you and all the rest of it. And there's a few of us on the outside that are scraping our hands up and saying, look, freedom, freedom, freedom. So where do you think this is going to go? Because I feel really optimistic, because I think when I see like MaySafe, that's why I feel like MaySafe. When I see these decentralized, like what you're doing and what Aegis doing at Demon Store, and there's so many around the world, and I think, well, that's why we have to fly the flag from, because they inspire me. And I think, but the power we've got is we've got the computing power in our hands. That's what inspires me. That people like yourself and Aegis and David Irwin at MaySafe and stuff like that, who are very freedom orientated, are building this, and we have the power of this technology behind us. So that's why I'm optimistic. But again, I'll hand that over to you. Where do you think this is going? And did you feel optimistic or pessimistic about maybe the next 5-10 years?
Well, I think history is a big guide for what's coming next. I'm not a doomsday type of guy, but it seems that every once in a while in the history of man, and even in recent history, there seems that every so often within every so many generations that there's suddenly a confluence of factors that really cause things that really are they're huge moments in time. Right, they're huge historical moments, and we've seen this like huge regimes like topple, like 1989 we had China, right? Just on and on throughout history. You see these things. Whether we go back to France and we see that the Bastille was stormed because there were things happening there, and can we point to one little thing? No, it was an aggregate of things. And I think that we're seeing kind of this mix, this potion again, because we have these infractions on privacy, we have these infractions on freedom. Our economies are just not doing well, right? We've got, the world is in chaos. We see all these things, and we're being told certain stories on one side, but there's this instability that's going on, and at the same time, we're being told everything's safe, right? But at the same time, there's this desire for freedom, and I think that this is all going to head into, maybe not a revolution, in the sense of overthrowing the government, but I'm hoping that there will be, people like Ija, people that are thought leaders, and John McAfee, people that can lead the way, to say, hey, stand for your rights, right? And to make a difference somehow by providing a product, by providing, those seeds of thought that give people a notion of, hey, you know what, this is mine, right? I have been giving away all of this information. Every time I upload and share things on Facebook, yeah, I'm sharing my information with friends, but I'm also sharing with the world. Facebook owns that forever. Twitter owns that forever. I'm guilty of it myself. I have both, right? But I try to control those things as much as I can, because I know at any time that information can be scrutinized. My location at a certain time and date can be scrutinized. It could be falsified as well. You just don't know. And unfortunately, this digital information, it's completely conclusive, right? In the eyes of, it's irrevocable evidence when it comes to the eyes of the law, right? So an error, a programming error, a glitch, somebody that impersonates you, that takes your information or logs in with your account, can make it seem like you said this, or you were here, or put up some false pictures of you. It's a kind of bit of a scary world. And I think that, again, if people can wake up to this kind of thing, I think that we'll see maybe not a violent revolution, but maybe a revolution in thought, a revolution in spirit of, hey, I'm going to put this down. I'm going to tone this down, because I'm sharing too much, right? I don't want to be reminded of something that happened 20 years ago, there's just so many things out there, that, could come back to haunt, that could come back in some ways, and we see some stories about this stuff. It's just, it's crazy. And another interesting thing is, we see more and more stories out there about how hackers are using social information to break in, for all of the technical aspects of what a hacker can do. One of the most powerful tools that they can use is social engineering. Pretending to be someone. Hey, Bob, I locked out my password. What was, this? What's the keyword? That kind of thing. I mean, there's so many ways to do it. I don't know. Have you guys seen the show Mr. Robot?
No, go on.
Well, Mr. Robot, it's a great show. I suggest the audience go catch that show. It's about a hacker and a countercultural type of guy who has like an anonymous type of organization, and the main character in the story, it's debatable whether he's sane. Actually, it's not debatable. He's pretty much insane, and he sees certain things, and he's trying to crush this, get his revenge on this over-powerful company that has power over everything. And one of the goals is to wipe out everybody's debts, right? Because this company's so huge, and I don't know who that's supposed to be, whether it's GE or whatever, Comcast or whatever, but it's a giant company, and they have everything. And anyways, real fascinating show. But anyways, the reason why I bring that up is they actually explore a lot of this. For all of the technical aspects that they do, a lot of it has to do with misdirection. There's a scene where a character in the show walks in front of the police station and drops a bunch of USB keys, right? It's got a little program in there. As soon as you plug it in, system's backdoored, and now they can see everything the cops are doing, right? That's exactly how these things happen. I mean, I have many relationships with a variety of communities of people that are in the InfoSec world, and these are some of the things that they learn. It's funny, it's comical. One of my good friends, Eddie, actually, he is a known. He does a lot of these pen test type of things, and one of the things that he loves to do most, is to do the social engineering, right? So he'll show up in a, and try to fit in and look like, I'm the maintenance guy. I need to get back there. Can I just borrow your computer for a second to look something up? Boom, he inserts something, and then he goes and proves it to the bosses. This is how I got in. You need a security culture. The security industry talks about security culture all the time, and that means every employee, every person being aware of what's going on, right? I'm aware. I need to protect the assets of the company. I need to know that when I walk away from my keyboard, I should log out. I mean, things like that, and it seems boring when you work at a company and you have to go through these things, but it's also important. I think that's also important for people to start to develop their own security culture, a security awareness and knowledge of what they're sharing, knowledge of how they behave, knowledge that when they install an app, and I know that you have some future plans to talk to Devasive, but when you install an app, that there's something in there that is going to root your phone, that's going to be listening to your calls or grabbing information. And sometimes these apps will just tell you, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to access your contacts, and you just say okay, just assuming that it's okay. It's not always okay. You need to aim to minimize those things, and at least be aware that is this something that I really need? Do I really need this game to access, my phone calls and make phone calls and things like that? Those are some pretty interesting issues.
Yeah, I think what really strikes me about why I'm really optimistic about what's coming up in the next sort of few years and generally is I think a lot of things that we focus on. I don't mean that generally. I mean just when the community roughly. It's always almost a lot of it is generally focused around the first world. And when you imagine that there's maybe 7/8 of this world that have got all this potential there, but have never had the levers on the power of the machine, and soon they're going to have the power of the machine, and that's what I think it's going to be a game changer. Because I mean, you think all the banks and all the systems and all that, they're all concentrated on a very small percentage of how they clog up the world. A lot of it, I mean, as you saw, I mean, one country like Greece collapses and it almost sends the euro into collapse, and they know, and all these people that are focusing always focus on the they concentrate themselves, which is where the points of weakness become, and that's why I just think where we are as a human species. I think we're just going to have to, as you said, I think it's more than just facing up and saying it's not one corporation, it's not one government, it's a mindset about people. We've got to, as human beings, wake up and say, look, like you said, an analogy I love to use, and it's it's like life is like being chucked out of a plane, and you're chucked out of a plane, and there's a parachute chucked out after you in a bundle, and you've got to work out how you've got to grab that parachute, you've got to strap it on, you've got to open it up, and you hope to come, when you come into a soft landing. But you've got to learn that you have got to do this, and I think that's one of the things about the mindset, and this is why I think it's important we have these conversations, because as we know, as you were saying before, you about distractions. I mean, I don't see these kind of conversations on CBS and NBC and BBC and stuff like that because they don't like this kind of conversation. But I think these are the crucial conversations, because I think whether you look at it at doomsday or whether you look at it in a really optimistic way, I just think the important thing about the future is going to be about us connecting as human beings. We've got to understand what we are like as human beings, and a lot of that is because when you do connect as human beings, that's why we try to bring it right down to a personal man-to-man or human level. It's like saying, when you got home and you close your door at night and you've got your kids, you don't want everybody watching. That's the moment between you and yourself and the people around you. And if you can say to that and make people understand that and say, now try to replicate and think that's what everybody's around you should be like. and then they switch on and they realise that, oh yeah, it is a bit creepy that these people are slipping in the middle of man and they're trying to watch us and stuff, and it really wakens them up. And I think that's why I'm really optimistic, because I think as a species, as human beings, are quite we understand what privacy means, because we, like I said before, we don't all live in glass houses, and we understand what, you know, the idea of security means, because we all do, you know, look after our own things. We understand that we've got our own personal minds, our own personal property. So I'm quite optimistic about things. I'm glad to hear that you are as well. I mean, I think it's just, I think it's the times we live in, like you said, they're very. It's a momentum of history, and that's why I think we live in the greatest days ever to be alive. I think going back, I mean, I'm old enough to remember what it was like 20 years ago, and to sit now and having a conversation with someone in Denver about this, it's just a mind blow to me. So I'm really optimistic, and I just think, you know. So my question to you would be what kind of what kind of steps do you think that we as a community, we're obviously all trying to fly the flag at the moment. What steps should we be taking to try to spread this word to people, and what kind of, you know, advice would you sort of give to people who be listening, thinking, okay, I get what you're always talking about, but what can I personally do in my life to, you know, help that in any way and fight that, you know, fly that flag a bit?
Well, I think information is key. You know, I think that in all of those moments in history, you know, there was there. I mean, it was a different age, right? I mean, even talk about 10, 20 years ago, the speed at which information gets out is just incredible. It's an incredible period of time to be living in. And you look at how fast technology has evolved. We're walking around with supercomputers in our pockets. You know, when a guy like John McAfee first invented antivirus, right? When he first invented antivirus, a computer was something that, you know, not everybody had. Some people did, mostly for business. But you know, this was something that you turned on and off. Your phone is a supercomputer that is constantly on, constantly sharing information, able to get you information, watch video, buy, you know, share, take pictures. I mean, it's amazing. So yeah, the evolution is there's no doubt about that. But, you know, again, when you look at these moments in time in history, it's about information, right? And if you keep up the information, because, you know, that's key to it, because, you know, there will come a moment, and unfortunately, the transgressions against people will continue. But there will come a moment where, you know, there'll be something that happens that is so shocking, that is so against, you know, humanity on some level, whether it's a regime that uses this technology to do something to people, whether it's something that happens to a revered figure somewhere, something. You know, we can't. I don't have a crystal ball, not here, anyways. But something will happen, and when this information continues, when the things that you and I are talking about, and when others lead the way with these types of you know, these types of discussions, you know, all of those things will suddenly come into focus, and it's going to be, it's time to shut this down. We need to take this back.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment at which it happens. So these conversations are important. You know, we need to continue, you know, leading the charge and talk about privacy and all of these things. You know, unfortunately, people have become immune, right, to, you know, oh, well, I got another letter, my Target card got hacked, or, you know, my Visa card got hacked, or, you know, my healthcare provider sent me a mail and they lost 50,000 accounts and I'm going to get a year. There must be people out there with, you know, stacked credit monitoring, because there's so much of this going on. In the United States, earlier in the year, I think the figure was 100 and something million. You know, there's only 300 million people in the country. Only, I say, but 300 million, that's a third of the people. That doesn't include people who are retired, doesn't include children, you know, who don't have much of a digital anything. When you lose that much information, you just can't bring that back, right? So, you know, that's a big point of concern, and I think that, again, something is coming in, and people have, again, become very immune to this news and immune to the news that, oh, well, the government is listening. I don't have anything bad to say anyways. But it matters. It really matters, and I think that people should be aware and be on the side of limiting this, of controlling this, because nobody's watching the watchers, right? They're watching. There's algorithms, there's AI, whatever you want to call it, analytics, things that there's no reason, if you're not doing anything, yeah, they won't listen. But again, the whole issue is they can, and in some cases they will, and there's potential for abuse there, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, again, I can concur with you completely, because this has been a battle that's gone on. If you want to, I don't like to use that word, but it's been a yin yang thing, or a balance between two sides, or a dual sides between two sides of the thought process that's swung throughout the whole of time in history, man. I mean, and I think it's always comes down to, and I think this is this is why, in some ways, we, if you took us back, 10, 20,000 years ago, we would be like, supermen. Do you know what I mean? But equally, if we could converse with somebody like that, there would be the same sort of conversation, because it always comes back down to, the sovereignty. And like you said, it's the whole point about this whole conversation, the whole crux of it is really down to, nobody gives them the right to, and nor should they have the right to. The sovereignty starts with your own mind. That's where it begins. Your mind is your government, your body is your state, and then from there you can release how much you want to give. But if people understand, that's why I think it's a real important mindset, and I think it's really crucial, because I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there when you said this, John. Was like, I've seen it in the last 10, 15 years of my lifetime, is that with every implementation of every law that's passed, of every little nudge that's pushed that way, we've become weaker and weaker and weaker, and stuff we would never accept 10, 15, 20 years ago. People just now, yeah, that's all. I'm not. It's hilarious. I mean, I thought that's why I mentioned the significance of yesterday, because it always reminds me when I talk to my grand and people like that regeneration. And they often say, and it's a bit of a joke, and they say, like, what we're living in now is the super dream. They can't believe all the stuff we've given away. They're like, we didn't fight the war for this. We didn't fight the war for you to have them spying on us and watching us with cameras and stuff. And this is why I think it's really important. And I think it's not just a conversation that's happened now. I think it's a conversation that needs to be going onward, forwards, and that's the thing that they can ultimately never stop us doing. They can never stop us thinking that we are the brains of our own central nervous system, and they can't stop us talking. And that's where we have that's the ability we've got, and that's the power of these conversations.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I think another aspect of it is the mentality of I think the public in general, accepting these things. I mean, that's something that needs to change. In terms of products, companies, and services and things like that, there's a lot of people that are interested in Me Too, right? Doing things, and I can do that too. I could sell these things and make money, right? I think that's unfortunate, because I really think that technology should be oriented in a way, as far as new products and bringing things to communities, that are oriented towards changing things, towards being different, right? For lack of a better term, it's a famous Apple thing. But when you think about the great companies and the great companies that have done things like that, they were looking to do something that would change things for the better, right? And I think that should be, a goal for many of these companies that are looking for a product to do something, and that's why it's great to be associated with Demon Saw and Devasive, right? It's answering a question, for a problem that's out there. And I think that if you can differentiate yourself in there, not just differentiate because that seems to be a focus, but the point is that you're trying to make a difference and you're trying to give people to make this a personal thing, because security is personal, right? I described earlier how you make an assumption, or there's a moment in which you evoke trust in something. So it's a very personal thing, but it's also personal because of all of that information. And again, awareness is a huge part of that. And I think Blackcert is in a great spot to tell that story. From web transactions, to have that encryption in place, to protect information that's in transit, but also to secure the trust in that individual, that that their identity has been validated, right? That you're talking to the real thing. I'm really talking to my bank. I'm really exchanging information with my work computer, right? I'm not just giving away the keys to the kingdom. And I think we can do that little bit right there to raise some awareness. And the future is pretty bright for Blackcert. We've got a number of things that we're looking at. I mentioned the enterprise products that we're looking at, but there's a whole world that we haven't touched yet when it comes to personal certificates. That could help secure information on another dimension as well. And I think that encryption is something that everybody should have, and I think that it's very powerful. And I think that we're at a seminal moment where we have this pressure from these government agencies trying to intrude on that and take these tools away. And it's just again, it's a good place to be, because we're still staying out there and telling this opposite story of, you deserve this, you need this, right? We should be protected. And the case for like webmasters and businesses and things like that, it's pretty simple, right? You tell the story of, hey, I take security seriously, and even though I may not have a store in which an SSL certificate would be a requirement, I collect information, right? You log in, I collect information. You exchange any information with me, it's secure. Nobody else is going to be listening to this, right? There's also this motivation of Google change their algorithms to enhance the SEO, which is where certain pages rank as far as as far as search terms and things like that. So Google has given special preference to pages that have been secured by SSL. So they value the security of transactions and data in transit and things like that. Now, of course, for that only covers data in transit. It's up to those companies that collect that data or use that data to protect that information from that point on, right? So if they mishandle it and something happens, they failed, and that happens quite a bit, and we see that all the time. I mean, even in the government, we see intrusions and things like that, because a hacker was able to access a SQL database, for example. It's one of the most common hacks out there. They're able to use an attack to collect information. Sometimes they don't even know it's happening, right? And it's not well protected. There are ways to protect that, but sometimes the awareness isn't there. So this is one piece to that story of telling that that arc of security that should be in place when we're talking about companies and transactions. But again, to the consumer, it really stands at the forefront of that initial point of trust. And I think that's really the value of what Blackcert is doing, is empowering people to recognize the brand, to recognize that that pages should be secured, and that the webmasters or the companies behind these pages, whether it be a store or just some kind of transactional type of thing, that they value their relationship with the people that come to their site.
Well, yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. I think that's the perfect Zen, moment of the podcast, my friend. That's it. That's a perfect, in rock and roll terms, man. You just drop the mic, man. Boom. That's a perfect. Before we do sort of round this podcast up, man, and I know you kind of like skipped on it earlier on. I don't care. It's my podcast. I can ask you whatever I like. So this is a dual question to you, my friend. Say sometime in the future, there you go. I could present you with the a time machine. You go back anywhere in the world, and I'll give you the ultimate amount of money anywhere. And I'm going to say to you, right, as a car lover, my friend, where are you going to go? Is you going to go down and see Enzo Ferrari? You're going to go and see where would you, as a car lover, what point in history would you love to go to, and what car particularly would you think? Do you know what? I'd love to drive away in that one.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I do love exotic vehicles, but I grew up working on so many cars when I was a kid. I think the '60s was the heyday of the muscle car, and I'm personally a Cadillac guy, and I love the 1950s Cadillacs, and I love the big fins and the chrome. I would probably go and get my hands on just the longest, lowest Cadillac that I could. It would probably be a convertible. I like the Eldorados, and I just something, the classiness of that vehicle. Cadillac was an innovator, and they did some amazing things. My father has a car like this. It's a 1954 Eldorado, and it was the second year of the Eldorado. It's a convertible. It's got the parade boot. It's got the extra long bumper. We actually, when I was a kid, we had to build a garage around the car. It was so big. I think it's like 22 feet long or something. And man, and the front seat is like a couch, right? And so is the back seat, as a matter of fact. But for 1954, this car had a Wonder Bar radio, right? So like it would automatically tune to stations, right? Which is amazing. It would, with tubes and things like that. It had power windows, hydraulic power windows. It had automatic lights. It has power locks. I mean, just they really innovated, and it's kind of lost now in to most people, but even when it came to like things like innovations as far as the engine and the horsepower, because that car weighs, I don't know, 6,000 pounds, for a little, I think it's a 251 cubic inch motor. They got a lot of power out of that thing, and it's something else. It's a technological feat. Anyways, the Cadillacs, I mean, just that the era and what drove them to create cars with such unique styling, the kind of things that we'll never see again. I think right now, however, to be honest with you, is a good time to be a car aficionado, because again, back to the American cars, we have got so many awesome cars that are out there right now. We've got the Dodge, you got their Hellcat, the Mustangs. I mean, all these things have kind of harkened back to that classic style and attitude, and you got cars that are coming from the factory that are 500 or 600 horsepower stock. It's pretty cool, right? And they're not as affordable as they were, but they're packed with features and electronics and things like that. I mean, it's really cool. But again, my personal preference are those 50s and 60s era, because I know how to work on those. Today's cars are more, although they're nice in that way, there's a lot of components that are just throwaway, right? You don't repair things anymore. You just find what's broken and replace it. It's a very expensive endeavor. You can actually love a car from the 50s and 60s. I still have my first car, which is an old Blazer, right? You can still love a car like that because I built that carburetor, right? I put that radiator in. I had the ream that hole so it would fit. You know that car well. That doesn't work with newer vehicles. And anyways, that's my answer to that. Lack.
Man, that's perfect. That's brilliant, man. That's a great answer. So, before we finish, I mean, where can people, if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you? Where can they find more about Blackcert?
Well, our website, blackcert.com, is out there. You could always reach me through the social channels. On Twitter, I have Blackcert. I've got Facebook. I'm on Blackcert there. I typically get all that information. We're also, this is pretty exciting, and you're getting kind of a preview of this, but we're also launching kind of a security research branch of Blackcert. So this is going to be pretty cool, and I think that this is part of this continuing story of getting information out to people. I mean, think about this. We live in a world where everything's becoming increasingly digital, right? We've covered that. We know this, but people don't really know exactly how to secure things, right? How do I secure my phone? How do I secure my Echo Amazon device or my Bluetooth, this and that? People shouldn't really care. I mean, my perspective is, people shouldn't really get caught up in all of the minutia of how to secure this and how to secure that. I mean, this is for the average person. What really matters to people is the core of their information, their digital existence, right? So we're here to tell. So Blackcert is going to be launching this initiative to tell people about this digital existence and start to introduce ways and look at ways that people can protect this, and it'll touch on products, but it's going to be more of a mindset thing. We have some ideas for some cool products that can really help people, but it's going to be less about the tech of things and more about the person, right? About securing what your digital life is, and there's going to be tons of information on there. So we're ramping up. We've got a number of things going on. We're going to rank security companies. We're going to rank security products. We're going to do a whole bunch of things like that. And I think it's going to be part of, becoming more involved with the security community, but more importantly, reaching out to the people that actually use this stuff. And I think that, that's my contribution to people. And hopefully somewhere along the way they'll buy a Blackcert certificate along the way, if they're the right kind of person that's interested in that kind of thing. But more than anything, it's about reaching out to people and giving them the information that they need, and the kind of thing that we were talking about, right? Awareness, security, and protecting what's theirs.
Well, man, I hope this goes without saying. I mean, anytime you work, you feel you want to come back on this, you're more than welcome anytime. I mean, and particularly when any of these new products you're launching and stuff like that, you come on here and we'll fly the flag for you anytime, my brother. And anything you need doing, you just point your way here, because I think it's essential, and I think more than just, as you know, man, I'm sure you come across them, and I don't want to kind of end the podcast on a kind of negative note, but it's just what the whole point of life is. It's been true. You'll come in life, you'll come across a lot of people who talk about a lot of stuff, but they don't actually, they don't walk the walk, And I think sometimes, I'm really. I say what I say because I think it's beyond just a good talk and stuff like that. To me, it's a life or death essential product, and people like you, man. I think people like you need to know this, and for all the hours of work you spend there coding away, and all those hours of flying, that you think, oh man, I'm bashing me against the brick wall. You're inspiring people you're never going to meet, and step by step we're building a new world, and step by step we're getting there, and like you were saying earlier on, you touched upon earlier on, the real revolution isn't about kicking buildings in and burning down government buildings. The real revolution is just getting up, walking away, and building our own world. And when we look back at it, and future generations look back, they're going to look back and go, do you know what? I'm thankful that we're in this future world, and it's down to people like yourself, my man. So you keep inspiring, as we like to say on this podcast, man. You keep staying positive, and like I say, anytime you're more than welcome. You know, my house, this podcast, anytime you like, you want to, you know, we'll fly the flag for any time. But like I say, thank you. Yeah, beyond from the bottom of my heart for all the time that you give me tonight, because we were scheduled to do an hour, and we've gone a bit beyond that. And to be honest, I think we've only just scratched the surface.
Well, Tim, thank you for having me on. Absolutely. I mean, just holler at me. I'll jump on. Thank you very much, and to the audience, support Blackcert. Check us out. We're getting a whole new thing going on there really soon. So a little bit of a preview coming along, and I'll be sure to alert everybody who's out there. You know, we plan on carrying the torch and, you know, taking these ideas to the people, and I think that's important. I appreciate your support, sir.
No problem. Well, for me, in the early morning of here in Scotland and all the way from Denver, man, life is people, people.